Yeah, pretty good.
Jacket on.
Jacket on, please. Yes.
It's like being divorced or something.
And he says, oh, how about you do something on teeth?
It was a pipe dream. Pipe fish has turned into a pipe dream.
Okay.
So that was 2 we've done, right?
That was 2.
Okay.
Can I do this again?
Yeah, of course.
I'll start from the beginning.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
No questions without notice.
Which one? Read it again?
Okay, yeah, but
Yeah. Okay. My name is Kellie Tuck and I'm an associate professor in the School of Chemistry and I am a PhD supervisor. What are some of the common characteristics that make a successful PhD candidate? Well, there's a few in there. So I'd say one of the first thing is that they need to have a love of learning. If they don't have a love of learning and that sort of independent thought, then they're really going to struggle to become an independent PhD researcher. So that I would say is my main tick. I think that the love of learning also gives them a bit of resilience because if you have that love of learning, you can actually cope really well with failures. So having that resilience and knowing that you're not always going to get the answer that you want is really important. But also counter that by the positive thinking is really important in a PhD. So even if you don't get the answer that you want, you can always get something positive out of it. Another thing that's really important is probably having a good basis for writing. You know, we don't come out, I think, in the Australian system with a really wonderful way of being able to write, having a really good understanding of grammar, but having that basic way about how to construct sentences and also to, I guess, build up your narration and your story is really key. If you can't communicate your science once you've done it in the lab, then it sometimes means that no one's going to be able to listen to what you're actually saying. Okay. Have you had to change your supervision style over the years? I think that that's a definite yes. I think as we go on and we become more experienced, we recognise how to get the best out of people. My research style is nurturing, but also I want to challenge them. And so I think when I first started out, I was treading the fine line and I had to, make sure that I wasn't challenging people too much without giving them the support that they needed or recognising that, you didn't want to drive them too hard or anything else. Everyone has different personalities. Everyone can, be guided in a different way and having different PhD students over the year with different characters, different ways of wanting to do things means that you have to alter your supervision style to see what works for them and what doesn't. And sometimes it was a little bit of trial and error. But I think at the moment everything's going quite well, and everyone is being able to be the best that they can be as a PhD student. What is the most important element of a supervisor-student relationship? So a supervisor and student need to make sure that they can communicate really well throughout the whole of the candidature, so right from the very beginning right till the very end. And when I say communication, I mean talking and listening. Sometimes we can talk, but the other person doesn't listen. So there has to be the ability there to be able to take in what the other person is saying, digest it, and then, of course, respond in the manner that is actually quite respectful. It's all about the PhD student becoming an independent researcher. So what that means is that they will become the expert in the field. It won't be the supervisor, in the middle or the end of the project. And so the student should be driving the project. They should be coming up with ideas and they should be, making decisions themselves. Sometimes that goes against what the supervisor actually wants. But if there's respect and communication, then the student will be able to put that case forward and also feel comfortable with actually saying those things. So with that in hand, the student will have a much better experience. They'll feel more empowered and they'll become that really independent scientist at the end because they'll be the one driving their project. What do you enjoy most about supervising PhD candidates? So I think I enjoy the most about seeing how they grow, how they become that independent researchers, and where they go on after the PhD. So I don't enjoy farewelling them from the group. 3.5 years passes by way too quick. But I'm really pleased that they're leaving the group because they're going on to their next position, of which their PhD has set them up really, really well for. I also just really enjoy just talking with my PhD students about science, you know, seeing what they think, what they've found, what they've read, what their thoughts are in the area, what they've actually seen on Twitter in terms of, you know, the science thing of what people post, hearing their enthusiasm for what they're doing, and just in generally having that, I guess, relationship with them, which is a very personal relationship, but of course a very professional relationship as well. It's really exciting to, you know, go in each day and just casually drop into the office or the lab and get an update on, you know, how they're finding things and what they're doing and how their life's going, you know, just generally outside as well. Okay. What are the main differences between your PhD and a PhD now? So I think this one's a really interesting one, because when you look around, I think anyone who is 20 plus years in age is really amazed at how technology has changed in their lifetime. And so I think that really is the major difference. For me, when I was sort of going through my PhD, the World Wide Web was starting, email was becoming a thing. Technology now, compared to when I went through, is quite remarkable in terms of what you can do. And that's really powerful from science, the search engines that you can get access to, the way that you can find what other people have done in terms of research is really quite empowering in terms of, you know, designing projects and then where you go. But I also think that there is a sort of a negative with that, which is sometimes there's too much information out there. So you get the online journal articles and they're just everywhere. There's so many more journals than when I went through. The search engines help you be able to, you know, distill that information down to what you need. But you have to have that skill to be able to do that. So let's put it as positive. You get that extra skill, but you really, I guess, need to not be overwhelmed with where things are actually at. The other thing that I think has really changed since I went through is that recognition that there is life outside academia after a PhD, and that has really come into the PhD program. And I think that, you know, Monash and Faculty of Science should be commended for the role that they've played in that. We know that PhD students go into government, they go into industry. They also go and do science-based jobs which are, you know, not in their disciplines. So the program that Monash has, I think, really opens people's eyes up to the fact that they don't need to go on and do a postdoc, they don't need to go on and be an academic, and they also don't need to be a lab-based person in terms of, you know, chemistry. There are other options available out there. So that, I think, is a really powerful thing and something that has definitely changed in the PhD program, or from the PhD program that I did.
Thank you, Kellie. You're so gracious. Thank you.
No, that's all right.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.